A common question we get from rental property owners is, do I actually need to license my rental property? My name is Ben Burnett with Grace Property Management, and our team manages rental properties across the Denver metro area. Many rental owners in Colorado are hearing about rental licensing requirements for the first time. And understandably, there's a lot of confusion around what is required and where. So today we want to walk through that question together and explain the long-term rental licensing programs currently affecting owners in Colorado. The answer actually depends entirely on the city where the property is located. Colorado does not currently have a statewide rental licensing requirement for long-term rentals. However, several cities have created their own licensing programs, and enforcement has been increasing. You may have seen in the news recently as Denver increased penalties and began issuing larger fines for properties operating without a license. Today, I want to walk through the major rental licensing programs in our market and what rental owners should be paying attention to as we move into 2026. Most cities in Colorado still do not require rental licenses for long-term rentals, but there are a few important exceptions owners should know about. The three primary jurisdictions in Denver today, or around Denver, are Denver, which launched in 2022, Boulder, which actually has one of the oldest rental licensing systems in the country, began in 1971, and Westminster, which began regulating certain multifamily rental properties in 1996. One interesting thing about rental licensing is that cities rarely adopt these programs all at once. They usually start small and then expand over time as enforcement increases. Many cities have short-term licensing, but fewer have created these long-term rental programs. Let's dive deeper into Denver's program because this is the newest program and currently affects the most rental owners. Denver launched its program in 2022. This program applies to most residential rental properties in the city that are rented for more than 30 days at a time. That includes single-family homes, condos and townhomes, small multifamily buildings, and even large apartment complexes. To obtain a license, the property must first pass a health and safety inspection. These inspections must be completed by a qualified third-party inspector with certifications through organizations like American Society of Home Inspectors or International Code Council. These are Denver-specific requirements and only allow certain inspectors to complete these. The inspection focuses on basic safety and habitability items, things like smoke detectors, handrails, electrical safety, plumbing functionality, and general housing code compliance. For most single-family homes, these inspections typically cost somewhere between $150 and $200, depending on the inspector and the size of the property. Once the inspection is complete, the owner submits an application to the City of Denver along with the inspection report. The application and license is another $50 a piece, going up by building size and unit count. Once approved, the license must be renewed every 4 years with a new inspection and new renewal application. Because the program began rolling out in 2022, many properties will begin hitting their first renewal cycle starting this year, which means renewal inspections are about to become the next major phase of this program. What really has been getting attention recently is enforcement. Originally, the maximum fine for operating without a license in Denver was $999. Denver recently increased the maximum penalty to $5,000 per violation. The city has already begun issuing these higher fines, and in 2026, Denver issued its first $5,000 penalty to an unlicensed landlord. This is a clear signal that the city views this program as mandatory and enforcement is increasing as the system matures. From our perspective, managing property across the area, the biggest issue we see is not that owners intentionally ignore this program. Most of the time, owners just don't realize that it exists. Now, while Denver's program is relatively new, Boulder has had a rental licensing program for much, much longer. Boulder has required rental properties to obtain a license for decades. Most rental housing in the city must maintain an active rental license. Like Denver, Boulder also requires inspections to verify the property meets minimum housing standards. One slight difference is Boulder requires that their inspectors also be certified with them, the city themselves. For many smaller residential properties, inspections typically fall somewhere between $150 and $200, but with Boulder, the application fee for the license is $190. Boulder also enforces some housing regulations that are fairly unique to the city. For example, there's an exterior lighting and smart utility use regulation that are monitored as part of the inspection and license process. Because Boulder has operated the system for so long, the licensing and enforcement process is very well established. Lastly, another city owners sometimes ask about is Westminster. Westminster takes a slightly different approach. The city does not require all rental licensing for most single-family homes. However, Westminster does regulate larger multifamily rental properties. Generally, this program applies to buildings with 4 or more units, which must register with the city and participate in periodic inspections. Because this program focuses primarily on apartment buildings, it does not impact many individual rental homeowners in the same way Denver's program or Boulder's does. But for larger multifamily properties, owners should expect registration requirements and inspections costs that vary depending on the size of the property, but is much lower than Denver and Boulder with only a $50 license and $40 inspection that runs through the city instead of third-party inspectors. For rental owners in the Denver metro area, the key takeaway is simple. First, know the city you're located in, understand whether the city requires a license, and lastly, plan for inspections and renewal timelines. Programs like Denver's are still relatively new, and it would not be surprising to see additional cities explore similar regulations in the coming future. If you're a current a current owner with Grace Property Management, you do not need to worry. We track all licensing and renewal timelines to ensure your property remains compliant. And if you're not currently working with us, please consider us as a resource. We'd be happy to help you navigate the ever-changing rental regulations here in Colorado. As always, we wish you success with your rental investment, and we'll see you in the next video.